Hello, my dear listeners. My name is Kishore Ganesh, and in this episode of the Vocal About Visuals podcast, I'll be reviewing Paramount Pictures' Sonic the Hedgehog 2, starring James Marsden, the inimitable legend that is Jim Carrey, Tika Sumpter, Idris Elba, and others. Let's get a preamble out of the way. I'm going to be reviewing this film very much as a standalone movie and not as a part of the Sonic franchise. And nor will there be any comparisons with the first film because, well, I haven't seen the first one. This one, the part 2 that is available on Amazon Prime as part of my subscription. But for some strange reason, I need to rent the first one, it seems. LOLs times 10. That's not gonna happen. So I figured, let me watch this film as one of those rare ones where I watch the second part, and if I get a chance, I'll check out the first one. With that out of the way, let's get to the movie. The main reason I got excited about this whole franchise was Jim Carrey. The man's a comedic genius, no question about it. And when he chooses to play Dr. Robotnik, it's bound to be interesting. And it will be eclectic, eccentric, and wacky. And that's exactly the case here. But the thing is, I'm sure Carrey is giving his quintessential Carrey performance. But his performance and the entire film is affected by this strange lag. I don't know whether it is because of the editing or because there were a few timing misses that were happening between the performances of the actors and the CGI that had to get filled in, but there was this definite lag that you would find when you watch the film. Apart from this too, the film suffers from two main issues. One, there is not enough substance in the plot, and two, there is a pacing issue in addition to the lag I just mentioned. Let's address the first issue now. See, it's a kids movie, so I get that there needs to be a tempering of expectations from my end about the depth of themes that will be tackled here, especially by movies from studios that are not named Pixar. But still, this film's plot is as generic as they come. And what's more, it is part 2 of a franchise, but it still is an origin story. Origin of how the trio of Sonic and Knuckles and Tails came to be. With the origin story structure comes the requirement to focus on the introduction of the new characters as opposed to the focus being on telling an interesting tale. And maybe this focus on new character intros is the reason for the plot to be as generic as they come. Except for the characters themselves, there is nothing novel at all that the film puts in front of us. Even some of the dialogue that is in this film seems like, quote, some template lines you should speak about friendship and family, unquote. And I guess that is what is disappointing to me about the film. When you have a popular IP, the required funding, and Jim Carrey on board, maybe they could have really pushed the boat out and written something truly wacky and memorable. Ah well. And speaking of the pacing issue, there is a slight jerky feel to the film which doesn't allow you to get into it and immerse yourself in Sonic's universe. Instead, the movie resorts to some good comedy gags and the aforementioned allure of seeing the characters from the Sonic universe to hold your attention, which I guess works for the kids, but adults will find themselves to be bored pretty fast at the templatey nature of the film. On the whole, Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is a decent film for children, which if you are watching on OTT adds to a few points in favor of watching the film. But for adults, it is bound to be a slog to get through, despite the presence of Jim Carrey and the talented voice cast. Once again, my name is Kishore Ganesh. This is the Vocal About Visuals podcast, and thank you, my dear listeners, for your time and for listening. Please subscribe to this podcast on YouTube and on your preferred podcast platforms, and follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Podcast Plural. Thank you.